We are about to visit some of Chicagoland's most famous haunts. These are places where ghosts are believed to have been encountered. But before we begin, let us first examine what we already believe to be true about ghosts and hauntings. A ghost is a paranormal manifestation. It may be a visual apparition, or a disembodied voice, the feeling of a cold spot, or even a psychic scent not of this world. The key to all of these extrasensory encounters is that they are believed to be caused by someone dead. It is not uncommon for ghosts to be tied to colorful characters or historical events, particularly violent or traumatic ones. Murders, disasters, and fatal tragedies often have all the makings of a legendary ghost. It is believed that many ghosts are caused by someone dying an unnatural death, usually violent, often at a young age. Others believe that ghosts haunt if the deceased is not given a proper burial, or is not buried at all. Ghosts often occur around deaths that have been surrounded by secrets, unsolved murders, or when the departed may feel he or she still has unfinished work to complete in this world. Besides manifesting themselves to all of the human senses, ghosts can additionally be encountered on film or audio tape, even when the human eye or ear registers nothing. Among Chicagoland's ghosts are examples of all imaginable types of psychic possibilities. We should point out that ghosts should not be considered as harmful or dangerous. Ghosts are to be found at places and locations that are in some way significant to them. Former homes, workplaces, locations of death, and even resting place of the body are all sites where ghostly activity can take place. It would seem that some ghosts are unaware that they are dead and continue haunting or living in a place important to them. A rarer type of ghost is the spirit who seeks human company in an effort to help or complete unfinished business important to it. I'm Richard Crow, a professional ghost hunter. I usually take large groups of people around Chicago by bus to visit haunted and legendary sites. These are places that I've researched in my hunt for real ghosts. But in a moment, I'll take you on a personalized tour in our guide to Chicago's ghosts.
Hitchhiking ghosts are found worldwide. The best known, the best documented, is in the Chicagoland area, and her name is Resurrection Mary. She haunts places like the Willowbrook Ballroom, and she travels her route along Archer, the road just to my right. She was a beautiful young blonde Polish-American girl when she died tragically in the early 1930s. She's been coming back haunting ever since. She will attend dances, she will attend parties, and then, on her way home, she disappears at Resurrection Cemetery. One of the better-known stories about Resurrection Mary dates from January of 1979. A cab driver was passing right by this marquee. He went another block up the road when he spotted a blonde in a white dress. Standing there about 1:30 in the morning all alone, he offered her a ride. She got in the back seat and off they went. He was lost. He said he would give her a free ride if she helped direct him north. As they traveled along, she finally said, "This is the place." He turned to ask her what she meant. She was no longer in the back seat of the cab. He hadn't stopped or slowed down. The girl had vanished, just as he was passing by Resurrection Cemetery.
With more than 130,000 graves, Resurrection Cemetery may well be the largest cemetery in North America. In the late 1960s, thousands of older term graves from the Depression era around the time of Resurrection Mary were changed in an unusual manner. Grave markers and headstones were removed from the original grave sites to make way for bulldozers and new earth. The locations of the original graves are now lost beneath new grave sites. A surge in reports of ghosts at that time may be linked to these events.
These are the front gates of Resurrection Cemetery. The ghost of Resurrection Mary has often been seen here, sometimes walking around the gates, sometimes even through the gates, and that's after they've been locked tight for the night. In 1976, a very unique discovery was made at these gates by a police sergeant from Justice, the village that we're now in. The police sergeant discovered 2 bars bent with handprints of a human form, yet they couldn't have been human because they had bent the bars apart, squeezed the marks of hands into the bronze, and left scorch marks on the green patina. Were these the handprints of a ghost? That's what many believe.
As word of the discovery of the strange marks spread through the area, curiosity seekers began to stop at all hours of the day and night. The cemetery decided to act by blowtorching the marks away. When this did not work, the bars were sawed out and sent away at great expense to have all traces of the handprints removed. The original bars are back, but only photographs remain to document this remarkable event.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Rich. How you doing?
Pretty good.
How are you, Rich?
This is Chet Prasinski at Chet's Melody Lounge, the old lounge right across the street from Resurrection Cemetery. Chet, tell me about Resurrection Mary's drink.
Well, it started as a tradition of quite a few years ago that every night we would leave a drink out for Resurrection Mary, and hopefully that she would stop in and have it as just as a hospitality drink.
Chet, do you think Resurrection Mary ever came into the lounge?
I think she came in one time, but I didn't see her. There was a fella come in here looking for a girl that he had dropped off in my parking lot, and when she didn't come back out, he came in looking for her and kind of demanding that I'm hiding her or something. So he sent a waitress in the washroom to look, and she was nowhere to be found. And there was nobody here with the description. He said he was a blonde with a blue gown on it he had just picked up out on the road. And when he came in here looking for her, I didn't know anything about Resurrection Mary or anything like that. But there was nobody here like that. And he swore up and down that we were hiding her someplace. I don't know.
So that could have been Resurrection Mary here at
Could have
Chet's
been
Lounge.
Resurrection, right?
Well, since Resurrection Mary's not here, cheers, Chet.
Yeah. Good luck to you, Rich. I just hope she don't come in after you finish that and try and get it back out of you.
We're here with Jerry Palis, who in 1939 met, danced with, and gave a ride to Resurrection Mary. What was it like, Jerry?
Well, it was a wonderful experience because when I met her at the dance hall, I watched at the entrance there for quite a while, and I didn't see her come in. And then all of a sudden, I turned to my left, and there she was at the wall where I met her the first time. And I went up to her, and we start dancing, and that's what she came there for. And it was no big deal right off the start, and then it was time to go home. So I said to her, it's 11:30, we might as well leave. So she left, but I had two other fellows and a car this time. And as we walked along to the street, she says, well, you might as well take me down to Archer Road. And I said, what for? I said, you live here and here, where you told me. And she says, no, she said, I want to go out to Archer Road. So we took her to Archer Road, and as we got to the Resurrection Cemetery front gate, she said, stop.
What happened after that?
And after we stopped, I said to her, you don't live here. I know where you live, because they gave me the address the former time I was with you. And she said, please, I want to get out and please let me out of the vehicle right now. And I said, okay, I'll let you out on the one condition, that I cross the road with you, because I know where you're going. And she said, no, you stay on this side and just watch me. So as she crossed the road by herself and she approached the gate, she disappeared.
So that's how you found out it was Resurrection Mary?
That's right. And the following day, I went with the same two other men that I was with to her home real early. And there we met a neighbor, and he said, oh, she's dead for over a year. So as he said that, he says, go up there and ring the doorbell, and the mother will come out and open the door for you. So we went inside through the front, and as we were standing in the foyer, the mother happened to open the door, and there I seen her picture on top of the piano in the parlor. And that was Resurrection Mary.
Bill Sterenberg saw something ghostly across from Resurrection Cemetery in 1973, 1974. Tell us about it.
Well, I was working at the time for District Auto Rebuilders, which is across the street there. And I was about the third man on the call list for tow, because District towed for the village. And I was in bed sleeping, and the phone rang. I picked it up, and they needed a tow truck. They had picked somebody up, or there was an accident. I don't remember for sure what. I think it was a DUI. But went to the shop, picked up the truck, went out and picked the car up, and as I brought it back in the shop, I had to make a turn back in the gate. I was going back the truck and the car in the gate and go back home and go to sleep, because I was tired. Turned the truck, and I pulled up, and I looked up, and I seen somebody. Not really somebody. I seen something, or whatever, standing across the street between where we are now and District Auto Rebuilder. She wasn't in the cemetery, and she wasn't on the road. She was there, and I could see it, but then you couldn't see it. It was something like you would see in Disney World, an image, a hologram. I don't know what it was. You could see it, but it wasn't there. You'd look through it. And I got a little scared. I jumped out of the truck. Well, I didn't take the truck out of gear. The truck moved, and it disappeared. I got back in the truck, put the truck in there, and I went right back home. And my wife asked me what happened. I says, you know, all these stories about Resurrection Mary, they're true, because I seen her standing out there, and she told me I was crazy. And I wasn't. I seen her, and she believed there was something out there. I don't know what it was.
How long did you see the image altogether?
Oh, I would say 15, 20 seconds. By the time I looked up, it scared me a little bit. I jumped out of the truck, and when the truck jumped up, the image disappeared.
Would you have run right up to the ghost?
No, I wouldn't. No, no, no.
For half a century, patrons of the Willowbrook Ballroom have felt that Resurrection Mary comes back frequently. Maybe she's out there on the dance floor tonight. You see, it's the big band sound that's played here, one of the only ballrooms like it left anywhere in the United States that seems to attract a ghost like that young lady. So somewhere out there tonight might be that beautiful young blonde that we all know and love so well, the ghost of Resurrection Mary.
The seasons change. The years go by. A bizarre double murder remains unsolved 3 decades later.
I'm approaching Devil's Creek, just off German Church Road and just inside the Cook County line. At the very spot where I'm standing is where the bodies of 12 and 14-year-old sisters, Barbara and Patricia Grimes, were discovered on the snow-covered ground in January of 1957. The girls' bodies are found dumped here, apparently left by a car passing through the area. And that car reappears as a ghostly form, racing down that road, appearing over and over again, sometimes seen, but more often just heard as the car races down the road, screeches to a halt, dumps the ghostly bodies, and then disappears. Behind me through the trees stands the remains of an old house. Near that old house, ghostly objects have been caught on film and have on occasion been seen to the naked eye. Jim and Debbie Serpico of the southwest suburbs heard about this site and were out here on Halloween 1982. What happened?
Well, that night, 6 couples, we decided to get together. We were going to go for Halloween night. We were going to visit the Grimes sisters' house. You know, we heard the stories and this and that. So we came and we parked in the church parking lot up the street and walked down here, crawled over this sign here, and started up the trail. Well, we got to the house and we were deciding whether to go in or not because we didn't know, you know, what was in there. And just at that time, we saw a car coming up the driveway here. No lights, and we...
Interesting thing is the car didn't seem to make any noise, and it seemed like it was kind of blackened out. And at the time, we didn't think anything of it. We thought we were being shagged out by the local police or somebody just joyriding up to the house. But it struck us really funny when we walked back out and we came to this cable. The cable had still been strung across the 2 trees, and it hadn't been moved. And we looked at each other and thought it a little peculiar, and at that time we had glanced up and we had seen across the street there was a policeman sitting on the outside of his car, waiting for us to walk out.
The Cook County Sheriff.
Cook County Sheriff, of course.
What did he do?
Well, he started telling us that we had been trespassing and that we shouldn't have been on the property. And at that time, we all decided, well, we'd best start walking back to the car. And we had asked him if he had seen the car zoom past us and why a car was allowed up there and we were not allowed to walk on the property. And he said that there was no car. He'd been out there for 10 or 15 minutes previous to this and that nobody had come through except for our crowd of people who had walked out. And at the time, we didn't think it was peculiar until we had talked to you, and you had mentioned that, you know, a black sedan had been seen on the location here, and it's something, you know.
On a summer night in 1985, Joe Sanchez was here on the property taking photographs. Tell us about it.
Well, one night, me and a couple friends came out here to take some pictures. We had heard that if you take pictures, you can catch stuff on film that you wouldn't normally see. So what we had done is I was the only one with the camera. It's a regular 110 Instamatic. We had come out here and I had taken some pictures. Took them in to get developed. I got them back and there was nothing unusual until I got to one where I had taken a picture of the garage and what was left of the foundation. There was a mist type on there. And in certain spots, it looked like the one looks like a skeleton. The other one looks like a skeleton head, and it's just misty.
There was no mist or fog that night.
No, there wasn't.
But it showed up on the photograph.
It was on the film. You know, There was nothing. We had been snapping pictures all back there, all over the place. Just getting ready to leave when I took this picture. And then I had gone in front of it, and a friend of mine took a picture of me like maybe 5-10 seconds after this one was taken, and there was nothing. It was clear.
Do you think you captured the ghost on film?
Possibly. So I caught something, a spirit, if not a ghost, something.
Hull House was the birthplace of the famous school of social work founded by Jane Addams here in Chicago in 1889. When Jane Addams came to Chicago to try to work with the urban poor on the west side, she acquired this building. She evicted the tenants living here, but as they moved, they told her the place was haunted. She paid no attention and moved right in anyway. Then she found out she should have listened, as staff reported back to her that strange things indeed happened here. A shrouded monk-like figure has been seen on the top floor, and also on that top floor, fires would break out by themselves for no apparent reason, seemingly caused by a fiery poltergeist, a mischievous ghost who likes to set small fires. All of this, however, would die out by about the turn of the century. Today, Hull House in the 1980s still lives up to its reputation of being haunted. The building itself is a historic landmark. It now contains a library and museum, but at night there's nobody here. The place is empty. But on the top floor, behind the windows, are wooden shutters. Those shutters move by themselves on occasion for no reason, swinging back and forth when there's nobody in the building. There is absolutely no rational explanation. Ann Stewart was out with friends one night in the spring of 1985. She experienced something very strange here at Hull House. What happened, Ann?
Well, after hearing the legend of Hull House, a few of my friends, we decided to come down to see what we could see. Well, we hung around here for an hour or so, and then nothing was going on, so we decided, well, we're going to take people home. And we had left one car here. So after we had returned, we were out, we looked again, and the shutters in the north windows were flapping around. So being girls alone, we kind of like just took off very quickly because there was nobody around, and we did get quite scared from it.
You knew there would be nobody in the Hull House itself.
There was no one around. We didn't even see security guards driving around or anything. It's just...
So you feel it was the ghost?
We are pretty sure it was the ghost. We were quite scared.
Perhaps the most unusual story told about Hull House dates to just after the turn of the century. Ben Hecht, the famous Herald Examiner newspaper reporter, would claim that a young Italian girl from the Taylor Street district had given birth to a baby boy with horns, hooves, and a tail, a devil's child. Mother and child were hidden here at Hull House for a while by Jane Addams before being spirited out of the area. Hecht claimed that it happened right here at Hull House, although Jane Addams denied it. Years later, that story would become the basis of a famous novel, Rosemary's Baby, written by Ira Levin. The Rosemary's Baby scenario takes place in New York City, but the real story of the Devil's Child started right here in Chicago and centered on Hull House.
This National Historic Landmark has been haunted for more than 100 years.
Maple Lake is a man-made lake that dates to the early 1930s. Scooped out of the swampy north end of the Sag Ridge by bulldozer, today it's a pleasant recreational lake for rowboating, picnicking, fishing, part of the Forest Preserve belt. But at night, you can come here and go ghost hunting, because any time from sundown through sunup, a mysterious ball of light can appear on the far shore. A red ball of light that is caused by nothing of this world. It's not a taillight of a car, taillight of a motorcycle. There's no ready explanation. It's been dubbed the ghost light, and it's been seen by many over the years. I've collected many accounts, and I finally saw it myself in October of 1979. It was just a few nights before Halloween. With a bus full of people, we pulled into the overlook. Suddenly, across the lake, a red ball of light came on. Everyone on board the bus panicked, and I had to do my best to restore order. The light only lasted for about 40, 50 seconds, then it was gone. I've only seen the light 4 times in my life, despite the fact that I've been out here hundreds of times and I'm still coming out. I'm hopeful to see it again. Traditionally, a ghost light is said to be caused by a ghost coming back with a lantern looking for his lost head. Maybe that's the answer. Maybe out here somewhere in the woods, there's a headless corpse waiting to have justice done. It's nighttime now at Maple Lake, and this is the time the ghost light comes out. Joe Kostick is a lifelong South Sider. He's been hearing about the ghost light from high school days. He's also seen it a few times. Tell me about it, Joe.
Well, the last time I saw it was the dead of winter. It was freezing below zero weather, you know, about in the teens or down almost zero itself. And there was about a foot of snow on the ground. Anybody that would have been out there that night, at that time of night, had to be crazy like I was just to be out there. As with every other time that I saw it, and I've seen it a couple of times, I knew something was going to happen that night because when the minute I parked, the hairs in the back of my neck stood up. And then very shortly later, from across the lake in a totally inaccessible part of the lake, at least not easily accessible, the lights appeared. And they were not stationary. They moved around, they blinked, they were on for about 10 minutes. I have no idea what they are. They must be ghost lights as far as I'm concerned.
So an eerie feeling, and then the lights.
Right.
Maple Lake has the distinction of being America's only active ghost light in an urban area.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you know the password?
Dillinger?
You're okay.
Here at J.D. Speakeasy is a small Dillinger Museum of memorabilia. Here is a police patrol box used by the Chicago police in the days of John Dillinger. There are ledger books here on top of the glass case, and inside the case some more interesting objects. They include some tin cups and artifacts used by prisoners here in the jail. There's a replica of the toy gun that Dillinger used to escape from the jail. And of course the plaster death mask, the mask made from the dead man shot down outside the Bonograph Theater back in 1934. Next to that death mask is an old straw hat just like the one used by Dillinger the night that he was killed.
The bold deeds of the cocky Dillinger would make him a folk hero, a Robin Hood figure to the average citizen of the Great Depression.
The Crown Point, Indiana jail is connected to the criminal court building next door by a secret tunnel and by a catwalk. Both buildings have been abandoned now for a number of years. There are many reports in the area of strange ghostly sounds by night. In September of 1984, I was locked in the building at my own request. With fellow researchers, we heard ghostly footsteps. We heard cell doors slam. There was no one there to make them. Things are still going on to this very day. With me is Dennis Plesha, one of the owners of J.D. Speakeasy, and Joe Allen Catlow, who've had experiences recently. What happened, Dennis?
Well, it was about 2 weeks ago. I asked Joe Allen and Bev to go with me in the courthouse because I don't like to go in there myself. And I had to pick up some tools before I went home. And we were walking, as we came in the door, we walked up the stairs, and a half hour before that, the gate was closed. I locked everything up. I locked the gate, I locked the door. When we went up there that time, all this stuff was open. It was just 30 minutes later. And I started checking around on the top floor. I checked on the middle floor, the hall floor, and then we went downstairs. And as we went downstairs, we were right about even with the underground tunnel for the jail. And we stopped because Joellen said that she heard footprints up there, and we stopped, and we did. You heard 2 more steps after we stopped, and then we heard somebody laughing. I went back upstairs again and checked, and couldn't find anybody. Then we came back down again, and the same thing happened again. When I went to turn the lights off for the hall, I saw muddy footprints right where I was turning the lights off, and I says, let's get out of here. somebody's in here.
So you could tell exactly where the footsteps were coming from?
Oh yeah, it was right above our head, right exactly where we were walking, right straight above us, across from the jailhouse on the underground tunnel, exactly right there.
What's right up there?
Right above there, just a hallway up there.
That's the criminal court building?
That's the criminal court building.
Sentences would have been passed out?
Right, definitely.
What did you think, Joella?
Well, we thought that maybe some kids had gotten in there and were in there messing around, but we looked all through the place and we all went different directions and we couldn't find anybody. And when we went outside, we checked all the windows and Dennis said they're all nailed from the inside, so they couldn't have gotten any windows, so there was no way anybody could have been in there.
No way anyone human could be in there.
Right. But we did hear people laughing and footsteps.
Do you think it was the ghosts of former prisoners?
I really don't know. All I know is when I go into that jail, I do not go in there by myself, okay? I will not go in there myself.
This is the original Crown Point, Indiana criminal court building. John Dillinger would have stood trial here, but he escaped before. According to local people, this building and the jail next door are both haunted. Maybe the vibes remain from those prisoners whose sentences were passed here in this court. According to local people, definitely this area is haunted. One night in September of 1984, I staked out the jail in the courtroom with some fellow ghost hunters, including professional journalists. A number of us sat at a table like this one while photographs were being taken. One very special photograph was made that night. When the photograph was developed, it showed a strange mist-like shape above a number of us sitting there. This is ectoplasm, the stuff that ghosts are made out of. We prove photographically that this room is indeed haunted. Through this catwalk connecting the old Crown Point, Indiana courthouse to the jail, prisoners would be brought. They would be here in the jail, they would stand trial in the courthouse, and when found guilty, would be brought back here to their cells. John Dillinger walked down that very corridor. On the night my group and I staked out the old Crown Point jail, we heard phantom footsteps and a cell door slam. It could have come from here, the old maximum security section, the section where John Dillinger was held. He escaped from this very jail cell. Were the sounds that we heard that night the sounds of Dillinger's ghost escaping from the cell over and over again? Some of my group thought so. Maybe it wasn't John Dillinger's ghost, but certainly in a jail like this, there are many psychic possibilities. It was a night just like tonight, back in September of 1984, that we were locked in the Crown Point, Indiana jail. With me is Bill Carmia, a psychotherapist, and Shelley Smith, a photojournalist from Northwest Indiana, who were with me that night. Bill, what do you recall?
Well, I remember we were involved in a lot of things that evening. We were taking tours of the jail. We were walking through various parts of the building. I recall taking many, many pictures of different events that were occurring that evening. One particular event, we were involved in the criminal courthouse next to the jail, and I was snapping photos at an intermittent basis, and people were involved talking, listening, feeling around their surroundings, looking to see if they could find something unusual. And at the time, I remember taking pictures and hearing footsteps adjacent to the criminal court building in the jail itself, jail door slamming. And at the time, the place was very secure, and no one should have been in that building, and no one really was because it was checked out. And we had very unusual occurrences that evening.
Sounds are definitely coming from inside the jail as far as we could tell. We ran over there. No one could have been there. We were in a totally secured area. Nobody could have been causing that, except, I suppose, ghosts. Shelley, what do you think?
We were verified that we were alone by the Lake County Sheriffs. We were sitting in the ballroom. We were talking, and Bill was out taking pictures, and it was quiet. We were all kind of in our own little worlds. And we heard footsteps, and then about 20 minutes later we heard more footsteps, and then we heard the doors slam shut, and then we heard like people walking away.
A cell door?
Cell door, yes. And when we were walking through the jail itself, we tried the doors and they were like frozen open. So there was definitely something in there.
Rusted in position?
Rusted in position, like a open position, and the sounds sounded like they were in lock-in. They slammed them closed and walked away.
The sounds of long ago?
Yes, from a different era.
And Bill, you made a dramatic discovery with your photographs later.
That's correct. After the film was processed and developed, we came upon a picture that had individuals sitting at a table at the criminal courts building, and above one of the individuals there was a white smoky substance floating above and around this individual. Quite dramatic. And we had this picture checked out by independent photographers, and they've most assuredly said that it is a real picture. It's not something that's coming out of the developing process itself.
It was on the negative?
It's on the negative. It's a true photo.
What do you think the white stuff means, Bill?
Well, it could be a lot of things. Sometimes these substances can be termed as ectoplasm, some type of electrochemical energy. Can be a lot of different types of things. There's a lot of theories behind what these substances are. Nothing definitive. Much of it is theory, but it's possible. It could be ectoplasm or some other type of form of energy.
But beyond our current knowledge of science?
That's correct, right.
So after hearing rumors about the jail and courthouse being haunted, I checked out the site, interviewed witnesses, and stayed there one night. I personally believe the jail, the courthouse, definitely have ghosts. I'd like to thank Shelley and Bill for helping me in the project, for being with me tonight. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Bill?
Thank you.
The Biograph Theater is basically unchanged from the days of the Great Depression, the days of John Dillinger, public enemy number one, the most wanted man in America. The famous gangster and bank robber would come here July the 22nd, 1934, the last night of his life. Dillinger came here for two reasons. The Biograph Theater was air-conditioned, one of the few air-conditioned theaters on Chicago's North Side. And July of 1934 was a very warm month. Second, the movie playing here that night was Manhattan Melodrama, a gangster flick, and John Dillinger was well known to be a big fan of gangster movies. Dillinger would enjoy the movie, little realizing that waiting outside, the FBI had set up a trap. The movie would end at 10:30, and Dillinger would leave arm in arm with his date that evening, Anna Sage, who would forever go down in history as his betrayer, the woman in red. As Dillinger would leave through the main doors of the theater, the FBI yelled, "Hands up!" Dillinger made a dash for the alleyway just south of the theater. As he entered the alley, he would be shot down. He was dead as he hit the pavement. And now, a half a century later, the Biograph Theater is still a shrine to the memory of John Dillinger, with Dillinger memorabilia on display. And here at the Biograph, gangster buffs and Dillinger fans constantly come to relive history. Excuse me, is that seat taken? This is the famous dead man seat here at the Biograph Theater. This seat, now painted silver, is where John Dillinger sat before leaving the theater to be shot down. Dillinger selected this seat because it's only a few steps away from an exit door, a few quick steps away from freedom. Today, people seek out this spot. Many people come to the theater early just for the privilege of sitting right here. Despite the fact that there are hundreds of other seats in the theater to choose from, this is the one many people go for. On the old side of Mount Carmel Cemetery lies the grave of Giulia Bacola Petta, a young Italian-American woman who died in 1921 at the age of 29.
Julia was at home with a midwife trying to give birth to her first baby. Complications set in. The baby was stillborn and Julia died of fever. Mother and child were buried together in the same coffin a few days later. Julia was buried in her white wedding dress. According to old Sicilian custom, she had earned that honor by dying a martyr's death, giving her life for her baby. Sometime after the death of the woman and child, Julia's mother, Filomena Baccola, began to experience a series of strange dreams. And in those dreams, the dead girl came back, begging and pleading to have the grave exhumed. It took 6 years before permission was granted. Finally, the coffin was taken out of the ground. The lid was pried off, and there, inside that coffin, still as fresh and perfect as the day she was buried, was the body of Julia, the miracle of Mount Carmel Cemetery. Strangely, however, the body of the infant had turned to bones and dust. On the base of this monument is photographic evidence of what had happened. There is a photograph of Julia as she looked on her wedding day. Beneath it is a photograph of Julia, how she looked 6 years after she died, when the casket was taken out of the ground. She lies there in perfect condition in her white wedding dress in a plain wooden coffin. To the devout, the miraculous preservation of the body meant that Julia was saintly, and that led to the erection of the large statue behind me that was put together by public subscription. Grass will never grow here in front of the statue. It's worn away by the constant comings and going of people coming to pay their respects to Julia. Sometimes we'll even find lipstick stains on the photographs where over-emotional women kiss this monument. Julia's spirit has even been said to walk through the area, sometimes seen walking down Harrison Street. In 1978, a man driving down that side of the cemetery spotted a girl in a white wedding dress and veil walking along the fence. It was raining, and as he got closer, he realized she was not wet. She was perfectly dry and giving off a strange glow. Julia's spirit is believed to come here often. This is Showman's Rest at Woodlawn Cemetery. This is one of the few circus and carnival burial plots in the United States. Buried here are hundreds of members of those professions. This lot is maintained by the Showman's League of America, and they opened this spot in 1918 after a tragic circus train wreck just outside Hammond, Indiana. The victims of that circus train wreck were buried here. The graves of the train wreck victims have attracted many visitors over the years. They were buried here together when the area was scooped out by bulldozer, coffins laid shoulder to shoulder, and on top of them, each a separate stone, although most are marked unknown. And there's one very special unknown, number 43. This young lady, the only female member of the group, still unidentified, but on Mother's Day, her grave gets very special attention. It's just smothered with flowers that day every year. There are 5 granite elephants here at Showman's Rest. The big one is in the center of the plot, and this guy has his trunk pointed down. That's a symbol of mourning. He's in sorrow. He's in mourning for the fallen showman buried nearby. It's not a bad luck symbol. In fact, these elephants are sought out by gamblers, by bingo players, who come out here to pet them for good luck. The elephant has been the symbol of the Showman's League since the days of Buffalo Bill Cody. And these granite elephants have caused many in the area to mistakenly think that there are animals buried nearby. There are no circus animals, bears, big cats from that train wreck buried here, yet many people mistakenly think so and also believe that the ghosts of those animals could come back at night, that after midnight or so you can hear ghostly animal cries while standing here at Showman's Rest. Many colorful characters and legends are associated with Showman's Rest and the Showman's League of America. Buffalo Bill Cody was a founder of this organization. When he died in 1919, he was buried in Colorado with a 500-pound ivory elephant. In keeping with that Buffalo Bill tradition, buried here somewhere secretly on the grounds is a large ivory elephant. The exact spot is known only to the high-ranking members of the Showman's League. Buried here at Showman's Rest is Edward Karn, a circus fat man, buried both here and here. When he died, he was so big he was buried in a packing case, needing 2 graves. But he wasn't big enough. He never made the pages of the Guinness Book of World Records. Legends of strange animal sounds here at the graves of Showman's Rest, where circus performers and carnival people lie buried, have persisted in the western suburbs for many years. The story was heard by Sergeant John O'Rourke a 17-year-old veteran of the North Riverside Police Department. He solved this case some 15 years back. What did you find, John?
Well, as you stated before, I have heard the rumors and the speculations of animals being buried here at Showman's, and of people hearing strange animal sounds coming out of the grave. Prior, I always knew there was no elephants or circus animals buried here, but circus performers. This specific night I came in here was in the summer. It was very hot. It was around 4:30 in the morning when there was no traffic on Cermak Road over there. And I came in specifically just to mosey around and look at the grave sites, and I was over the section over in front of us where the unknown performers were buried from the original train wreck. I must have been here probably about 5 to 6 minutes, you know, shining my light down there. And I heard this noise, and I stopped to listen for a second of what it was, and then I heard it again, and it was specifically animal sounds. Well, at that time, it sounded like it was coming from wherever I was standing underneath. Well, it scared the daylights out of me for a second, and I turned around to see if there was anything around, and then realizing I knew it didn't come from there, I listened more closely, and I started hearing the sounds again. And that's when I realized that they were animal sounds. Like the roar of the lions. I couldn't distinguish if it was an elephant's call in there or not, but there were definitely animal sounds coming. And I realized it was the zoo, which is only down here at 31st and First Avenue.
That's Brookfield Zoo.
Brookfield Zoo, right. And I realized that was the sounds that I was hearing from, catching on the wind coming this way, the atmosphere right, no traffic on Cermak Road, the heatness maybe having some effect into it. And I then realized, aha, they aren't coming from the ground, but from Brookfield Zoo.
So you've been back here since and heard it?
Yes, I have. I've been back here, I've heard it a total of 3 times. Like I say, everything has to be just right.
Conditions must
be right. The conditions
right.
exactly right. This, in fact, is when I heard it was in July. It was very hot and humid, and a small wind coming in that way. If you remember right, like we were talking before, when I was growing up in the northwest side of Chicago, at times when they had the stockyards, if the atmosphere was right, you'd be able to hear the sound sometimes of the cattle over at the stockyards coming in at you. It was just catching on it right there.
Same sort of effect.
Same
yes.
kind of effect. Very eerie sounding, though. When you're here by yourself.
You're not aware of what it is.
You'll exactly, anybody who doesn't rationalize right away, and again, my very first impulse was, my God, there are animal sounds coming from the grave. And if I wasn't in the profession I'm in, I might have got right back into my vehicle and scooted out of here very fast and told everybody, my God, I heard ghost sounds coming from the graves of the
But luckily you're a
showmen.
trained observer.
Yes, very good.
At the end of this abandoned, overgrown road lies Bachelor's Grove Haunted Cemetery, long considered one of the more haunted cemeteries in the Chicagoland area. Bachelor's Grove was a popular lover's lane from the 1950s through the mid-1970s. Many legends and folktales that grew up around the place, including the story of the Hook. A couple was parked out here one night when they heard on the radio that a lunatic had escaped from a nearby asylum. The lunatic had a hook for a hand. The young girl was so perturbed that she had her boyfriend drive her home. When he got out of the car to open her door, he found dangling from the car handle the hook. They had just escaped in time. The most popular Bachelor's Grove legend involves the apocryphal story of the couple parked out here one night in the 1950s. Parked on this dirt road, the young man told the young lady he'd be right back. He left the car but didn't return. Minutes would turn into hours. The young lady was very frantic when she began to hear strange scratching sounds on the roof of the car. She was too afraid to go out and check. By morning, a squad car making the rounds had discovered her. They told her to walk towards them and not to look back towards her car. Of course she did, and when she did, she found there, hanging from a tree limb, was her dead boyfriend, his ankle strapped to a tree limb from this old oak tree. This is Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, with graves dating back to the 1840s. The area was settled by German immigrants who were farmers. At first they were bachelors. Then they would send back to the old country for their girlfriends, their sweethearts. They would marry, settle down, raise families, and when they died, they were buried here in this old cemetery. Stories are told of blue ghost lights, disappearing houses, and other strange activity out here. Perhaps the most interesting is the moving tombstone, a 700-pound stone just behind me that moves from spot to spot on certain nights. It is said that visitors here in the cemetery see it in one location. When they look back, it's moved to somewhere else.
Sadly, in recent years, the cemetery has been the target of vandals. However, its reputation for being haunted is well-deserved.
Cameras in Bachelor's Grove often don't get along. Sometimes there are strange malfunctions of camera equipment. Other times, people capture strange images on their film. Some people even think that they have captured ghosts while photographing out here at Bachelor's Grove. During the 1960s, Bachelor's Grove Cemetery was often haunted by a blue ghost light that would dance over various graves and stones out here by night.
In this area, the blue light would perform, just beyond the reach of startled witnesses.
Here at Bachelor's Grove, many people have seen a house in the woods, an old farmhouse. It's been seen by people who only find out years later that there is no house here. It's called the Disappearing House. It seems to have a ghostly origin. Among the many witnesses that I've found is Grace Nortman, who's with me tonight. Tell me what happened.
Well, it was in the fall or winter of 1966, 1967. When a group, two couples went out to Bachelor's Grove. We had gone to a basketball game and a dance, and generally we'd go for ice cream or pizza afterwards. It was suggested that we go out to Bachelor's Grove.
You had heard about the reputation?
Oh yes, I had heard about it, and I didn't want to go. My date was not the driver in the car though. We did go out to the cemetery, pulled in. It's a small parking lot, and they turned their car. They backed into a spot facing the cemetery right here, and there was a house right about 60, 75, feet away from us.
You saw it plainly?
Oh, very, very plainly, very plainly. Looked like a large, old farmhouse. Basically in good condition, 2 stories. There was a light on the first floor window, the front window. It wasn't covered with drapes. There were no blinds. There was some type of a transparent covering to the window, but it wasn't any type of a sheer or anything that I had ever seen before. And I found it puzzling, and I still find that puzzling. But there was a flickering light inside. At first, I thought it might be a TV. They were possibly watching TV, and that's when I started looking for the electrical wires. Possibly a fireplace. There was nothing frightening about this house other than the man was going to run out with a shotgun.
You were fearful of somebody coming out to chase you.
Right. There was nothing unusual other than it was an old home, and it was
How did you find out that it was a ghostly house, not a real house?
A year and a half ago, when I read the Tribune, the Chicago Tribune, and I was terrified. I did not like what I read. I was absolutely terrified.
Mary Ann Curbs also had an experience with the disappearing house. This also in the mid-1960s. What happened, Mary Ann?
My husband and I, well, he was my husband-to-be. We were driving down the road to the cemetery, and when we almost reached the entrance, we stopped the car because there was a car across the road. And there was an old man with a lantern leaning toward the car as if talking to whoever was in the car. So we assumed that we were not able to be in there. And I don't remember the man talking because my ears were focused more on the creaking of the gates. And it was lightning and thundering. I do remember, though, on the left-hand side of the road, there was an old house. There was, it was a one-story house with a bedroom, I presumed a bedroom upstairs with the lights on. There were lights on downstairs. There was a wooden porch, wooden stairs coming down. And I'm not sure, because of the light, it looked like there may have been a fence around the house with an arched entry into the front yard.
Now, how did you learn that it was not a real house, but a ghostly house?
I had Eddie Schwartz on one night.
The radio
yes,
show?
Yes, and you were, in fact, it was, I think, in October, maybe, of last year. And I heard you talking about this old house that was not there, and that's the first time I ever...
And you realized you had actually had a ghostly experience?
Yes, yes.
How did you feel?
I was very nervous. Very nervous. I tried to call the radio station, but I couldn't.
How do you feel now, looking back on it?
I don't know. I don't feel... I think it's interesting, and I feel a little strange knowing that I saw something that wasn't there.
And now you believe?
Yes, I do.
Now, Mary Ann and Grace have never met before tonight. They both had similar experiences, so I brought them together to see whether or not their descriptions of the house would match very closely. And I had both ladies go to separate places to sketch for me the house. Let's see what they got. Mary Ann, I'll take yours first. We've got lights on in the house. We've got a little wooden porch. Got steps coming down from the front porch there, and basically a typical old-fashioned type farmhouse.
Yes.
Okay. Let me see yours here. Now, Grace has similar steps. Grace has the same kind of porch. Grace has the same kind of door, and windows on the first floor. She's a little bit more detailed on the sides of the building. About the only difference is the way the roof is perceived, but that could have been... This is years afterwards, of course, that you ladies are sketching this. 20 years afterwards. Certainly we can't expect it to be letter perfect, but these are remarkably similar descriptions of the houses. Remarkably similar artwork here to show what the houses look like, and neither one of you ladies ever met before.
No.
And you weren't talking about this prior to tonight.
No.
I didn't even let each of you know about the other.
Right.
You just knew that some other people existed who had had experiences. So what do you think now that you see that you both have seen a similar house, which was not there?
Well, I knew I saw the house. And
I saw it too.
What can I say?
But you saw something that was not there.
Right.
And now you can sketch it, and it's the same house.
The house was there.
It was there.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you very much.
We're here in Clarendon Hills at the Country House Restaurant with one of the owners, Patrick Regnery. What experiences have you had here, Patrick?
I've had three distinct experiences, two having to do with the back door. And what made me believe that something odd was happening was especially the back door was a metal door. I've heard it slam 1,000 times. And these two times, the sound was exaggerated. But once my brother was here with me, he tried to recreate this sound by going back out and slamming a door. It just wasn't the same. It was like an echo when it happened. As I said, the sound was exaggerated. I've never heard anything like that before. The door was locked. It couldn't have happened by a person slamming the door.
So you blame the ghost?
Yeah, I certainly do. The other experience I had was an inside door, a fire door separating the kitchen from the dining room. That's a heavy door, fire door, meaning that it was built heavy so it would contain any kitchen fire. That's a solid core door that can't be moved by a gust of wind or anything like that. I was the only one in the building. The door swung open and swung shut. Again, the sound was exaggerated, as if it was in an echo chamber. It couldn't have happened by itself.
So you feel your restaurant is haunted?
Yes, I certainly do. And I don't blame anyone for being a skeptic about it. It just happens to happen to you. And then you become a believer really quickly after that.
I'm here with David Regnery, owner of the Country House Restaurant. He's been here for some 12 years. David, how did you learn the place is haunted?
Oh, about 6 or 7 years ago, I came in one morning with one of the carpenters that helped remodel it. We had some work to do in the kitchen. We came into the kitchen, spent about 5 minutes there, and then came into the bar area. It was a bright summer day out, and all the interior shutters were closed. We walked into the bar. I said, "Randy, what kind of a beer would you like?" And boom, 6 of the interior shutters went up by themselves. And it really startled me and startled him, and he thought I was pulling some sort of practical joke. Went over to investigate the shutters, and there were no wires, nothing. You know, that's the first time that I really noticed something was going on.
But many of your employees have had experiences.
Yeah, after that, other people began to notice doors opening by themselves. We had a local policeman who was going through a divorce, and he asked if he could stay in one of the empty rooms upstairs, which used to be an apartment. He did, and after about a week or so, he told me that he would hear footsteps going up and down the stairs and back of the bar, and a couple of times he literally got out of bed with his gun, and no one there. And he finally just slept through it. It didn't bother him after a while, but not every night, but once or twice a week, he'd hear the footsteps up and down.
Of course, one night I was out here with some psychics. We got here after a wedding reception in the area, and only when I got here did I decide it's a good chance to see if there's anything going on. So I sat the woman down, sat the 2 women down at a table in the back, and I said, "This place is supposedly haunted. What do you think?" They soon came up with a story about a blonde, and they said that she was 28 years of age, and I believe they said it was 1958 that she died. They said that she was here, that she, in fact, was in love with a bartender, that she got into some kind of argument with him, that she ran out of the place, that she was very upset, in fact, had nothing to drink, left the place, got in a car, drove off, and that she had committed suicide within a mile or so of the place.
Yeah, I had never heard that story until they told me about it, and a few days later I called up the man that we bought the bar from, who's still in the Chicago area, and he said he confirmed everything. Actually, I think they said it happened in 1957, and he said no, it happened in 1958, but they got the age
Just
proper.
1 year off, though.
Yeah, he remembers it very well because he was sued under the Dram Shop Act, and he was totally exonerated because she hadn't had anything to drink that day, but her death occurred within a half a mile of the building.
And there are some, though, who think they've seen the blonde here.
Yeah, one day I was talking to the hostess at the hostess counter, and a couple came in, and the man jokingly asked me, "Gee, what do you have upstairs, some sort of bordello?" And I said, "No, not really, why?" And he said, "Well, as I came in, my wife and myself saw a blonde woman up in one of your windows kind of beckoning us in." And so I went up to the room that he was talking about, and the door was locked. It was a sewer room at that time. It's an office now. But anyway, the door was locked. I unlocked it, looked in the room, nothing there, and went into the kitchen and asked if anybody came down the kitchen stairs. There's only 2 staircases in the building, 2 ways down from upstairs. Nobody saw a thing. Nobody saw a thing.
So that seems to be the ghost of the country house.
Yeah, it does. It does. It would be quite a coincidence if it wasn't. But we've had experiences again and again and again. For instance, I was sitting at this table one night about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we close at latest at 2 on weekends, and I can't remember if it was a weekend or not. But anyway, I was sitting with one of the girls that worked here. We were going over some menu changes, and the place had literally been deserted for an hour or 2 hours. And all of a sudden, the jukebox went on. And that really startled the hell out of us. We both left very, very quickly. I called the jukebox people the next day, and they said, "Impossible, it can't happen. If it was off for X amount of hours, it's not going to just go on by itself."
So it's almost typical poltergeist mischievous activity.
Oh, yeah. Doors open and slam that are locked, exit doors. I've heard a baby crying upstairs. One of the waitresses has 2 months ago, heard the same thing. We've had cleaning crew in here. They come in every day about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and one heard a woman crying all night. He thought it was a radio and find out there wasn't a radio on, and he wouldn't come back afterwards.
But it doesn't affect trade, doesn't affect the restaurant.
No, it doesn't. Some people are very curious about it, but really very few of the customers, aside from the man and his wife, have really heard anything. Because during business hours, it's very noisy in here, and you really wouldn't notice anything unless you were staring at a door that suddenly opened and there was nobody there. But it doesn't really seem to be active during business hours. It's usually late at night.
It'd be hard to tell anyway.
Yeah, it would.
Accidental death or deliberate death, the incident apparently produced a ghost.
Fritz Crouppen is a manager here at the Country House. He's been coming out here for many years as well. He had an experience recently. What happened?
David, the owner, myself, and Lynn, the bartender, were sitting at table 10 in the corner. We're all quite accustomed to the sounds when this place closed, and all of a sudden, we heard someone walking, what we thought was walking upstairs, and the hair on Lynn's head stood up and said, I want to go, get me out of here, walk me to the car. So I walked her to the car, and it got her going. David and I came back and sat down and talked about what we had just heard. And he said, well, Fritz, you finally heard the ghost, which is, I said, well, I was always kind of a non-believer, but I'm still not sure. Then the sound, came again, which is my hair stood on end, which is, and to tell you the truth, I thought it was all a bunch of hokum, before, but you would have had to have been there to hear the sound, again, which was no other sound that's come from this place before.
So after 2 experiences in one night, you're now a believer?
Yes, I am, very much so.
Mary Alice Quinn was a little Irish-American girl born on the south side of Chicago in 1920. Born with a heart condition, she would spend much of her life in bed and at rest. During that time, she would spend hours in prayer to her favorite saint, St. Therese, the European mystic. Mary Alice would die at the age of 14 to be buried here at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery. She would become famous not for what she accomplished during her short life, but the miracles and supernatural things that would occur after her death. This is the grave of the Chicago Miracle Child. Shortly after the burial of Mary Alice here, reports began to filter back to the Quinn family. People said that the apparition of the little girl had appeared to them, curing them of their various illnesses. These reports would soon stop. Taking the place of reports of an apparition was a psychic scent of roses, a sign that Mary Alice was somewhere nearby. That psychic scent often occurs here at the graveside. It's occurred to me a number of times, a strong scent of roses when there are no physical roses present. In fact, there are no roses here today, only some artificial roses. Other flowers grow here, and also you'll find around the grave quite often plastic crosses, rosary beads, holy cards, all signs, all offerings left by the thousands of pilgrims who come here every year looking for the intercession of Mary Alice. Mary Alice's mother during the 1940s and 1950s would often lecture at various grammar schools and high schools in the Chicagoland area. When she would do that, she would provide people in attendance with a special relic. This is a picture of Mary Alice, and stapled to the bottom is a piece of yellow cloth. This is a first-class relic, a piece of cloth that came from a dress that Mary Alice wore during her short life. Today, these are no longer being distributed, but a relic that many people have from the grave is a pinch of dirt. Taking a pinch of dirt from the grave of Mary Alice is an old Irish custom. It happens here quite often, and many believe that by taking dirt from the grave, they have some way of getting in touch with the Chicago Miracle Child. The Castle Pub on Chicago's North Side is the only Scottish pub in the city. It opened in 1961 when Jane McDougall transformed a local neighborhood bar into a Scottish pub, complete with tartan carpet on the floor and Scottish memorabilia along the walls. Jane bought a former shot and beer bar and changed things. One thing would remain the same, however: the former owner, who died here in the bar in 1959. He's still here, he's still present, and he's been observed by many over the years. Jane discovered this fact shortly after opening up. She found out that vodka would disappear from open bottles in the bar at night. She'd even mark some of the bottles with a piece of crayon at the level of vodka, only to come back the next day to find out that during the night, when there was nobody present, the level of vodka would continue to drop lower and lower. Jane McDougall has had nothing but trouble keeping bartenders on the job. They just don't seem to want to work here along with the ghost. One of her first bartenders was Al, who also would drink vodka like Frank. One night, Al poured himself a shot of vodka, left it on the bar, went down to the basement to get some cases of beer. When he brought the beer back up, the shot glass was empty. Al knew he hadn't drunk the vodka, but he wasn't quite sure. He poured himself one more shot, wrote a note: Al did not drink this vodka, and left it there. He went back in the basement, came back up with more beer. There he found the shot glass empty with that note nearby. Al quit at that point. Another bartender, David, had trouble with the coolers. The cooler doors would open and jugs of wine jump out and hit him in the foot on more than one occasion. One bartender was brought over from Scotland. His name was Billy. He came from Scotland, worked here a while, got nervous with the ghost, went back home. He got up enough nerve to come back from Scotland one more time. He was here alone one night when he heard a voice behind him say, "I'll take a shot of vodka on the rocks." He turned around. There was nobody in the bar. He was on the front step at closing time for Jane McDougall to come and lock up. He quit at that point. This is the exact spot where Frank Giff, former owner of this bar, drank himself to death in 1959. Of course, things looked different back then. There was no booth here, and a bar ran down in front of us along the side of the wall. Frank was behind the bar, fell backwards, struck his head against this wall, and died. So we are precisely at the spot where he breathed his last and where all sorts of things have happened. Linda Barcelo here has had an experience recently here at the bar. What happened?
Well, I came in one night, and I had on a dress, and I felt a coldness coming up the back of my legs. And I was watching the door, and I would feel cold again, but it would be my calves, the part that was exposed, and I never felt the cold again. It was only happened in one certain spot, and I could feel some kind of like presence in that certain spot.
So you felt this was not of this world?
No, there was something different about that spot.
The ghost of Frank apparently makes himself known particularly to women with red hair. Frank's widow, Edna, had red hair. And a coldness, cold spots here at the spot where Frank died, or even a cold, clammy hand on occasion, has been experienced by many women. Linda, of course, is a redhead, so I think she fits that category quite well.
The Castle Pub is named after the famous Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. The original castle is definitely haunted. Its Chicago namesake is living up to its reputation.
The Robinson family burial ground is a genuine Indian burial ground here in the city limits of Chicago. Alexander Robinson, also known as Chief Chichipinque, his wife, Catherine Chevalier Robinson, and their clan lived, died, and were buried here in the early pioneer days. Alexander Robinson himself was a hero of the Fort Dearborn Massacre. During that time, he helped to save American settlers and was given a tract of land along the Des Plaines River near current O'Hare Airport in gratitude. Indian burial grounds have traditionally been considered good places for hauntings. Robinson Woods is no exception. Here in the woods at night, strange lights, strange sounds have been seen and observed. Now, by the two trees behind me, in that area, Indian tom-tom sounds were recorded. Caught on tape by two psychic researchers some years ago, no explanation is possible. There were no Indians or Indian tom-toms present in the woods that night, at least not physically. And here on the boulder in front of me, a strange light was caught on film. A ball of light above the name Alexander on that boulder showed up as a silver dollar-sized looking ball of light. The light was caught on infrared film. Nothing was wrong with the camera, nothing wrong with the film. With the aid of that infrared, we captured what appears to be a ghost light. There are many stories of people seeing ghost lights by night, This photograph was taken by day, so apparently the ghosts are still here during the daylight hours, only we can't see them with our human eyes. In front of the monument erected to the memory of Alexander Robinson, we often find flowers left behind as offerings. Sometimes feathers or other strange artifacts, and nearby is always broken glass, from wine bottles, beer bottles, pop tops of beer cans, debris of that sort, left behind by neighbors who come out here in the woods to drink by night. Now, they have a very curious custom that they go through. They always spill some of the contents of the first can, the first bottle, on top of the ground, on top of the graves. I've asked them why they've done it. They said they've always done it that way. It's an old tradition. Now, that's an old Indian custom, to spill some of your first can, your first bottle on the top of the ground as an offering to the spirits, to the ancestors who've passed on before. And maybe that's one reason why the ghosts are still here in the woods by night. You see, some of the Robinson clan were known to be alcoholics. So maybe, with that booze percolating down to the grave 6 feet below our feet, they might be earthbound for some time rather than move on to the happy hunting ground. I had a very real psychic experience out here at Robinson Woods, November the 2nd of 1980. That's 2 days after Halloween, All Souls Day. I was leading a tour to the area. We got off the bus, walked back in the area around the spot where Alexander Robinson lays buried. As we stood there, suddenly those with me remarked that there was a scent of violets in the air. There were no flowers in bloom, there were no cut flowers to be found. Those with me began to search the area. When they couldn't find a natural explanation, they decided to create one. They soon singled out one girl in the group, and they said, "It's you. You're wearing cheap perfume. You're the cause of all this." That poor girl went back to the bus in tears. When I apologized to her later, there was no scent of violets around her. She was not the cause. What could the scent of violets mean? Traditionally, a scent of violets or roses is said to mean spirits are nearby trying to make contact. And what better day to have this happen than on All Souls Day, 2 days after Halloween, a day when the dead are said to be able to come through easier to those that are living on this side. From the advent of photography, ghosts have been caught on film. The ghosts are very rarely seen with the human eye, but they're caught on film that is developed later. Amateurs capture ghosts very often, and on rare occasions, a professional photographer is involved. During a routine photo shoot in a Northside Chicago cemetery on Clark Street back in the summer of 1982, a professional photographer and his model embarked on a very special adventure. They captured ghosts on film. The most remarkable example of ghosts caught on film that I've seen around the Chicagoland area was the photograph taken by Jim Henderson and his model, Ladine. Ladine, what do you remember about that day?
Well, we came out here one day for what I thought was going to be a normal, regular shooting, and I started to feel very strange walking around, like somebody was watching me, and when we got the pictures back, apparently somebody had been watching me.
Jim, what was on the pictures?
Well, the picture had a, we'd say, a weird effect to it. The parts of Ladine's body, such as her neck, her arm, and her leg, were glowing. And then also the head or face of an individual who I'm not able to identify, showing over her shoulder. This is we did not use any unusual lights that day or filters, and I'm just very surprised that we got the result we did. I don't have any explanation for it, but I was very pleased with the result.
Now, you've been a photographer for 14 years now.
That's right.
And have you ever seen anything like this before?
No, I have not.
So what do you make of it?
Well, as I said before, it's a little hard to explain, but it does make for a very interesting Photoshop. So I have some friends that have doubted it, but like I say, we did not touch it up in any way.
So you think it's something of the other world?
That's possible, I couldn't say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is 2122 North Clark Street. It was formerly the home of the SMC Cartage Company, and in the garage here, members of the Bugs Moran gang would meet back in the 1920s. Al Capone wanted to consolidate total control over bootlegging in Chicago, And so it was here that the infamous St. Valentine's Day Massacre would take place, February the 14th of 1929. Capone had his henchmen, disguised as police and plainclothes detectives, come here on a mock police raid. They tricked the Moran men into thinking it was a routine police raid. They lined up against the back wall of the building and were shot down. 6 men dead instantly. The 7th man would die hours later in nearby Alexian Brothers Hospital. This site has been sought out by curiosity seekers and tourists ever since. When the garage still stood here, all sorts of people came and asked to be let in the back room. They wanted to go there and stick their fingers in the bullet-pocked holes of the wall. They were told, no way, go away, we're not allowed in. In 1967, things would change. That's when the garage would be torn down with other buildings on this block so that the housing project behind me could be constructed. With the garage down, now you could walk right over the area. In fact, you can stand just about where the men died, marked by this tree. This is about the north wall site of this lot. Here along an axis parallel with this tree is where the men were shot down. And right around here, people began to talk about hearing strange sobbing and moaning sounds. At first, they thought maybe they were ghosts, but on second thought, it was just the imagination of those who were here. After all, if you had read too much about what had happened, heard too much about what had happened, maybe that was the explanation. But then it was noticed that animals act up here also. People walking their dogs in the area have had the dogs stare, growl, pull at the leashes, observe something taking place that those walking the animals can't see, can't observe. No one could accuse the dogs of having vivid imaginations. The animal testimony, as well as the human, points to some very strange activity taking place here, hauntings, ghosts, at the site of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. I'm standing just next to the wall of the building, just south of the massacre site. It was against a wall just like this that the men were lined up against and shot back in 1929. When the garage was torn down back in 1967, bricks were highly prized souvenirs. Everybody in the area wanted a brick that came from the garage. A brick that came from the wall was better, and a brick with bullet holes was better yet, but any souvenir of that massacre would do. Now, a lot of people in the area still own bricks, but the largest number were sent to Canada to a British Vancouver millionaire. He used those bricks in a very tacky fashion, however. He lined the men's washroom wall of his banjo bar with those bricks. He soon found his banjo bar closed. Bricks were placed in storage. They now are offered for sale from time to time. He suffered bad luck from those bricks. Many Chicagoans feel that bricks from the St. Valentine's Day Massacre wall contain within them some sort of a jinx, some kind of a curse because of what happened here years before. Many people wouldn't own one for anything. Could a relic of a tragedy that took place years before contain within it some essence of that disaster, of that horrible day? That's what many people feel around Chicago, and some people I know who've had bricks have since gotten rid of them. They want no more part of them.
We can only speculate where those hundreds of jinx bricks from that massacre wall may be today.
Mount Carmel Cemetery in West Suburban Hillside contains hundreds of graves of people like Jaime Weiss, Frank Nitti, and Scarface Al Capone. This is the grave of Al Capone, the godfather of an immense bootlegging empire created back in the days of Prohibition. Al died in 1947 at the age of 48, quite a young man. To this day, people still come and plant flowers at his grave. Al lies buried next to his mother. He was his mother's pet in life, and the only son given the honor of lying next to her in death. Is the grave of Al Capone haunted? There are many who would like to think so. I have no hard evidence about that, but I did make an interesting discovery November 1, 1980, the day after Halloween. I was leading a tour here, walked off the coach, came to the spot, stood here, and found a case of beer on top of Al's grave. 2 cans were missing. I later found the empties in the hedges. All the other cans were full. It was obvious that someone had been here the night before. The dew on the case showed that, and they were frightened away by something so terrifying and left in such haste that the case of beer was still there the next day. I can assure you that local police or the cemetery workers would not have left that case behind. I took it home.